Welcome to the Wine Brothers Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, feel free to support us on Patreon at Wine Brothers Podcast, follow us on Instagram at Wine Brothers Podcast, or follow us on Twitter at Wine Brothers Pod. Thank you very much. Hello, Michael. How are ya?
I'm good, John. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm just obviously in the same predicament as you, in the middle of harvest, trying to get it all done, and it's been quite the harvest this year for us. How about you?
It's been pretty tough. I would say, as far as I know, I've talked to some people and they said it's the most challenging year that our area has had.
Oh, that makes me feel a lot better.
For those of you who are worldwide listeners, I live on the eastern shore of Maryland. I'm a winemaker on the eastern shore of Maryland, and so the mid-Atlantic region of the United States. And John, where are you?
I am in the outer coastal plain of New Jersey, and I've talked to winemakers in upstate New York, on Long Island, and things have been tough for us as well. So.
Yeah. Just to give a quick summary of what the weather was like, what the summer was like even, it started out amazing. We had 3 weeks of massive dry weather during veraison, and then all of a sudden, huge spikes in humidity and massive rainstorms that just continued for 3 straight weeks, and things just went rotten. It's been a really tough year. But
I would say
there have been some golden linings this year. I got some pretty good wines out of a year that probably we shouldn't have had great wines. So
yeah, well, table that. I want to talk more about the great wines you had, but our season kind of went like this. So we had some of our varieties. Well, most of our varieties actually were fine, but we had our late kind of, I guess, late to bloom / early to flower kind. I guess that's a contradiction, but basically our Merlot, one of the sprays early in the season missed. So we had some brown rot in it, and that really hurt us on the Merlot side of things. But ironically, our Cab Sauv, a row away, right next to it, was fine. So whatever slight variation, because we had about a week of rain right during bloom. And Pristine, which is one of the sprays we sprayed. I think I mentioned this to you off mic, but I have a feeling that they're going to pull that off the shelf because it was most of the varieties we sprayed with that. I think that we're getting resistance to it, specifically with black rot.
Wow. Okay. Is it something? I don't know. Have you called the manufacturer and asked them how often you should be rotating it? Do they say spray it every other season, or?
I think you're not supposed to spray it for more than 3 times in a season.
Okay.
But the good thing about it is a systemic, so that's why we sprayed it. But then we got some ridiculous amount of rain over the next, between that and the next spray. And that caused the whatever resistance we had, because there was some necrosis in our. I'm actually looking this up in my book right now because, black rot, which is exactly what we had.
Okay, is that different than bunch rot?
No, black rot happens early in the season. And the, I'll have to take a picture of this and throw this up on screen. But basically what happens is the berries just kind of shrivel up right before veraison.
Okay.
So we had a lot of that. And I think that's what it was.
All right.
I was talking to our other grower, and he actually was spraying Pristine and Mancozeb and sulfur in a tank mix.
Okay.
And his Merlot came in great, and we actually made great. I'm happy with the wine that came out from his stuff. So,
what were the numbers when you got it in?
I wish I had my work notebook is at work still, but
I'm telling you, got to go with that Evernote.
I know. 20.1 Brix, 5.7 TA, and I couldn't tell you the pH.
Okay, so
Something like
you
that.
got something over 20. I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
That was actually one of the few things, yeah. It was a rough year.
Yep. But despite the low sugars, like I said, I had some really good wines this year, amazingly.
Yeah, tell me about that Malbec. Tell me what you did.
So
And
it was our first year harvesting Malbec, third year on the vines, um, and we picked it before anything started to happen to it. Basically, Brandon, our vineyard manager, and I walked through, and it, the acidities weren't high because we'd
what
taken
time
up so
frame?
much water. I can tell you when we picked it. Let me pull up my Evernote.
Oh, I love it. I actually, just for the listeners, I walked through that vineyard last year right after harvest. And they didn't pick anything from that year, and the grapes look, or the vines looked absolutely terrific.
Yeah, I mean, everything looked good. It's probably the thickest skin varietal we have in the vineyard, and it really held its own. It's weird. Like, I guess normally it's not a loose clustered varietal, but for us it was hanging pretty loose, and I think that was one of the things that also helped.
That actually helped our Merlot as well. Like I said, we had that black rot problem, but the clusters with our Merlot and actually our Cab Sauv were very loose compared to other years.
Right,
And I think
which
that
is
actually
weird.
saved us.
You wouldn't assume that, given berry swell and water uptake.
Well, I actually think it had something to do for us with the fruit set. I think something happened with the fruit set that was odd because in our site we had a significant amount of rain right around bloom and fruit set.
Yeah. Yep. So the 26th and the 27th of September we picked it.
20. Oh wow! So pretty early.
Yeah,
So that
it
came
was
in
pretty
pretty
early.
early.
But
And
it was a situation where we had a hurricane that was supposed to be coming.
yeah, that was a good choice
Right.
because we let our stuff hang.
Well, the hurricane missed us, but it was.
Didn't miss us.
Yeah, it did go. I watched it go over you. But I looked at it and I was like, okay, well, it looks great. It tastes good. There isn't any sour rot in it. The bricks are low, but nothing seems to be moving. And that was the case. I mean, the stuff that we left another 4 weeks barely moved. So
Yep.
we made the right call. We pulled it in. It came in at 18.6 bricks, which is really low. But, yeah, I mean, we capitalized. We're allowed to do that here. And I used Nobile base oak chips in the ferment, along with Tan Rouge, which I really like Tan Rouge. And then
I've heard you mention that.
mid to late add, I used VR Super at a very low level.
What is this VR soup? Is this
VR Supra it's Tan VR Supra.
Okay, so it's an enzyme?
No, it's a tannin.
Oh, well,
Yep.
sorry.
It's not a gallic tannin. It's a mix. I think it's a proprietary blend of tannins, sold by Lafort. And it's supposed to inhibit any lactase enzyme issues, so from botrytis or anything like that, color stability, and also mouthfeel structure.
We should do a whole deep dive into I'm and maybe you already remember this, but so the lactase enzyme happens during like fruit bruising and botrytis, right?
Correct.
And then it
as far as
like
I know,
for-
I only read about it.
Okay. So it happens during that, and I know that for like some people like to really oxidize their Chardonnay to get, I think it's to get all of that to.
Yeah, I was talking about I was talking about this with a winemaking friend, pre-browning to
Yeah.
reduce browning later. basically reduce oxidation.
Exactly.
To make
Yeah.
it more stable up front, so that when it hits ferment, it's more stable down the road.
Okay. Yes, this is exactly what I was thinking of. Okay, cool.
So I want to do some more research about that. I haven't done any research about it. I just read it in passing, and I thought, oh my god, that's really scary. I don't know if I want to try that.
Well, I've read about winemakers, bubbling oxygen through their Chardonnay juice to try to get it to remove a lot of that enzyme. I think it's that enzyme is what they're trying to remove. We'll have to let's table that, and we'll do some research, and then we can talk about it on another episode because.
All right, write it in your notebook so we don't forget. Because I hate when people are
I'm
like,
writing
we'll
it
talk
down
about
right
this
now.
Next episode, and then they don't.
Yeah. This is going to be episode. We're on episode 3, so episode 4, we'll talk about that. That'll be fun.
The best Star Wars is what you're telling me.
Yes. Well, the way I see it, episode 1 was the best Star Wars, but some idiots think that others were made.
No, it's 4, 5, 6. Those are the 3 good ones. 4 is Star Wars. 5 is Empire Strikes Back, and 6 is Return of the Jedi.
How I rate all my friends is if they say things like, yeah, I thought Jar Jar Binks was a good character. Then I just drop them. I'm just kidding.
So anyway, the Malbec came in. The fruit looked really good in comparison to other fruit we brought in this year, and so I wasn't afraid to cold soak it, which I did for 4 days. And I
really,
didn't get
4 days in the cold soak?
Yeah, with enzymes.
Did you use chitazan or chitazan? How do you say that?
Chitazan. No, I did not, because the fruit looked good. I didn't use it. I used it on several other lots of fruit that we had come in.
And you were able to keep it. You were able to keep it from fermenting for 4 days.
It's a cold soak. It's not a warm soak.
Well, I know that.
I had the tank set to 38.
Oh, okay. So you were getting it really cold.
Yeah, I'm talking blisteringly cold. Before I inoculate, I cut it off, and it takes 2 days for it to warm back up. The other thing is we bring our fruit in lugs, and then it goes in the cold room. And so it sits overnight in the cold room at 38 degrees. So it's 38 when we process it, pretty much. And that makes a huge difference. Anything that I had that came in with macro bin this year was VA City. So this is a good lesson to learn for years when you have disease in your vineyard. Pick into lugs, chill it down, and then process it. Because when you bring it in and throw it in a macro bin, it just starts wreaking havoc immediately. The ones that came in macro bin were 86 degrees in the center, and there was nothing I could do to cool them down.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what other techniques would you like to administer on years like this year?
For some of our stuff in the field, I was spraying it down with sulfite in the lugs and dusting with galactannin. Right in the field. And then then we stacked it up in the field and brought it to the cold room.
I was telling you that we got a bunch of mechanically harvested stuff in.
This was my first year experiencing some mechanically harvested fruit as well.
And I know we both have talked about this, but personally, I like hand-picked a lot better.
Yeah.
It is.
Most
of our lugs came in.
Mechanically harvested fruit would work. If
it was going directly into the tank.
Going directly into press. They're picking the field and they're bringing it right into the press, and you're pressing it and you're getting it in a cold tank. Otherwise, it is just a dangerous game.
Yeah.
Because it comes in mostly juice. I mean, the fruit is beat up.
Next year, the one thing I mean, we are going to be getting more mechanically harvested fruit in next year, but I will be making sure that I have macro bin levels of sulfite ready to be poured into each bin.
Yeah. Like, here.
I'm going to bottle it and send it right there. And
just pour
and you're
this
using
bag.
the galactannin, Sorry, Michael, I interrupted
just
you,
pour
but
this bag in.
yeah, just yeah. You're using the Gallic tannin for oxidative purposes. I know this,
Oxidative,
but
and also it's a lactase inhibitor as well.
gotcha. I thought I knew that.
Um, I mean, it has other benefits later in the ferment, but mostly oxidation and lactase inhibition. It really plays a good role in the press, keeps the juice from browning when it's coming out of the press, and yeah.
Yeah. Now I told you we're using our new equipment, and I will say,
You got a new crusher to stemmer, right?
yeah, worth every penny. Everything, the crusher to stemmer, the peristaltic pump, despite the lack of color in some of our reds, the aroma profile already is, leaps and bounds
Light years
beyond.
ahead.
Yeah, it's really good.
Any enzymes?
We used Color Pro, and I used my oak. I think we use oak granular is what I say. I mean, it's pretty much just powdered oak, but
Right.
and obviously, personally, I would like to hit it. If it were my winery, I would be hitting it with another tannin supplement in the beginning because I know how beneficial that can be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not in charge, so whatever.
Standout yeast this year. Any standout yeast for you?
Well, we clearly know the one that I hate.
Yeah, we both are on the same
And you
page.
can beep this, but yeah, I'll put a beep there. I might even not put a beep there, but I didn't say it because I was too scared. But I don't get to experiment with too many yeasts from a year-to-year perspective. I have a few that I'm looking into. We're making a Sauvignon Blanc this year, which we have not made, so I'm going to pick the yeast for that.
That would be in your lineup. Being East Coast, everybody seems to have a Sauv Blanc. We do.
Yeah, we're getting some chilled juice in for that. It's we've got it in line, so it'll be coming soon.
So I played around a little bit this year. I used 4 different yeasts on our Sauv Blanc, just to see what I liked better. And I can tell you from a movement standpoint, some do better in cold than others.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will say yeast standouts for me this year. Number 1, we're going with CY3079, which is a good barrel fermentation Chardonnay yeast. This yeast, very cold tolerant. Yes, it likes nutrients, so I doubled up on my nutrients. But I was really impressed with that yeast. Good structure, good weight, and really good tropical flavor. There's a nice tangerine rind thing going on, which I love in Chardonnay. So very happy with that yeast.
I'm digging into my notes to see what I used for my barrel chard this year because our barrel chard yeast I do really enjoy.
And then with honors coming in, X Pure, which is a new yeast from Lefort. Awesome. Loved it.
Okay.
It's supposed to be black fruit driven and good mouthfeel and weight, and it delivered, man. That thing was awesome. And you?
DV10 is what we use for the barrel.
I used DV10 too. That was one of the other yeasts I used.
It's a good yeast.
I love DV10. I won a gold medal at the San Francisco Chronicle on a Chardonnay that I made in California with DV10. It likes warmer temperatures. I will say that. It struggled in the cold room in my barrel ferments this year, but it got through.
Speaking of gold medals, the one wine I'm happiest with is our Chamberson from the vineyard that's closest to our winery. It's on this the majority of it is on this nice sandy kind of field, low vigor and just dark color, and that's what we make our port out of.
Okay.
And wow, the port I think this year is going to be exceptional.
Awesome, man. Good for you.
And that's another wine we've won some golds with, so I'm excited for that.
Sweet.
I even though we've had the rough year, the gentle crushing and destemming and long macerations with our reds, I think is really going to pay off because they smell great. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned earlier that I was just pouring in the malolactic inoculant today into our Cab Franc.
Okay.
And I lifted the lid on our varicapacity and I was just smelling it and I was like, wow, really smells good, even though it's a lighter shade of red than I like to see normally.
Did you, so are you off the skins then?
Yeah, we already we pressed that on, I think, Monday.
Do you know how many days of maceration you went?
I could look it up, but it was a little under 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
That it was, yeah, okay. About.
And that is, when do you start your count? As soon as
it might have been exactly 2 weeks, actually. It might have been exactly 2 weeks. We cold soaked it, so I count right when the cold soak starts.
Okay, so at crush then, when the grapes are crushed and go into tank, you start your count.
Yeah, I think we did a 24 or probably 36-hour cold soak.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've been playing around in a dangerous year, honestly, with extended maceration as well. Our wine consultant is a big proponent of it. He thinks there's a shift in tannin. I've noticed it's filling out with tannin. I don't know if it's the type of tannin that I love. There's a bit like of astringent, it's not green tannin, but it's like astringent seed tannin, which is giving it structure, but maybe, and I'm hoping that it will smooth out as time goes on in the barrel. But yeah, it's got some weight to it. But I'm at day 20. I'll be pressing at day 28. We're pressing tomorrow. So it's been in tank a long time. I've been gassing the heck out of it and pumping it over once a day, or punching it down, whatever works, whatever I'm in the mood for. So bouncing back and forth between gassing from the bottom, punching down, and then also doing a pump over. I've been alternating back and forth once a day.
How long are you concerned after it goes dry with keeping it on the skins?
Well, it's been a week, maybe a week and a half since it went dry. So that's what I'm talking about. Now, you laugh like it's dangerous, right? I feel like it's dangerous.
I don't laugh. I just feel like it's dangerous.
It is
and I
dangerous.
don't have that
It is dangerous. The guy down the street from me,
I know exactly.
He's like, I kept it like 48 days last year. I was like, what? 48 days, man. How did you do that? How did you keep it together for 48 days? Yeah. That's playing with fire. I was ready to press this a few days ago.
I get scared when I smell VA on the cold soak or anything like that. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, generally it goes away in the ferment, and it's not something you have to worry about. But that's one of the dangers of bringing in not so awesome fruit. But like I said, the stuff we brought in, we picked it, and the sugars were low, but the fruit was somewhat decent quality. The numbers weren't there, but that was just because of all the water uptake. But the actual structure of the fruit was decent. So
yeah, I would say our whites was an exceptional year. I mean, our Chardonnay, Vignoble, Vidal all came in really good quality fruit. Exactly where we wanted them, pinpoint on the acid, and
wow,
fermentation.
That's amazing because our acids were really low this year because of all the water uptake. There was just a massive amount of dilution.
See, I think we got less rain than you in the beginning because our fields were dry.
And you've got a significant, you've got a good slope, right? You're like 10 to 12 degrees.
Our Chardonnay field not so much, but we didn't get rain in that field for a while. Like, I think we picked it the last week in August or the first week in September, and we hadn't gotten any rain at that point, so.
Yeah, we got like 15 inches.
Yeah. So we were just watching the acids, and right when they came in, everything looked. It was a pretty good. Like the fruit looked great. It was in good quality, no skin degradation.
Wow.
Our Vignola was a little shoddy. I would love.
Well, that's a tough.
It
grape,
might
right?
take
that
a
grows in
lifetime.
Really tight bunches.
Yeah, exactly. It might take a lifetime, but I would love just to keep fooling around with breeding practices with Vignola to try to loosen up the bunches, because I love the wine it makes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Pinot Gris. I mean, our Pinot Gris, it's like you watch it, you're like, oh my god, it's time to pick. And then if you don't get it picked the next day, it's like, oh my god, there's sour rot everywhere. Because it's just tight. It's all the berries are hugging one another. So, yeah, Vignola's the same way.
Well, as our listeners know, Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio, and Pinot Noir, all the same species.
Right.
Tight clusters, thin skins.
I want to put
and
a shout out
grow.
to our subscriber. Thank you, subscriber. You're awesome.
Oh, cheers to our one subscriber.
Cheers to our one subscriber.
For you, we are thankful. Yes. Feel free to email us at winebrotherspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to answer any questions or emails, whatever you got. We're happy to hear from you.
If you're a home winemaker, throw some questions at us. We'd love to answer them.
If you're a real winemaker, we'd love to have you on the podcast.
Although go easy on the criticism.
Oh, you can criticize. We just won't respond.
Just criticize him. It's cool.
Oh, of course they wouldn't criticize me, Michael.
We hooked him. We hooked him with that Ghostbusters 2 discussion last time.
I bet you. I bet he's a movie critic.
Subscribe. These guys are awesome.
I was on YouTube yesterday playing soundtracks to what's that one with Al Pacino when he's really Al Pacino and he's got the
Scent of a Woman?
Yes, that's the one. Wow, you're on the same page. I never knew the right path. I never took it. It was too hard.
That's a good movie, man. But yeah, you're right. The soundtrack is pretty good with that. Hey, tell me about your Sauv Blanc. You said it was your first year?
Oh, we haven't gotten it yet.
Oh,
it's
you're getting
chilling.
Okay. Do you have a plan? Or are you going to look at the fruit and then make a plan?
Well, it's pressed, crushed, and cold settled. We just need to open up a few tanks. It's like at 31 degrees right now.
Okay.
And once the winery can get it to us, we're going to take it off their hands. We're not making very much of it.
Okay. Cool.
But I don't have a plan yet.
Off the air.
I'm just...
If you... I can tell you what I've used. I'll tell you what I used this year. So I did a tank ferment for majority of it, and you know how much I love Vin 13. So I used Vin 13 in the tank. And then I did experiments with 4 barrels. We had 4 excess barrels, and I did QA23, X5. I did a blend of QA23 and X5 just to see what that did. Let's see, what else did I do? QA23, X5, Vin 13. Oh, VL3. VL3 was pretty cold hardy. It was able to get through it. X5 was second, and QA23 didn't love the cold so much.
Okay.
But as far as thiol production goes, I mean, X5 and Vin 13 were really good. And I liked VL3 from a structure standpoint, too. So,
if I had infinite time and as much tank space as I could possibly afford or whatever, I would extend the majority of my white wine fermentations, well over 2 weeks, and just really slow them down, because I think that helps.
Well, you can come taste my stuff, because I guess I was running it pretty cold. We were so we're bringing fruit in, right? And you want to keep the fruit ultra cold. But I was also doing ferments in there too, so it was like a balancing act. And so sometimes stuff wasn't super quick to move. I shoot for a half to 1 brick a day. Like my white ferments go pretty slow. Like I know there are some people that do 2 bricks a day.
We're moving much faster than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I'll say I've played around a little bit this year with bubbling from the bottom of the tanks with CO2 to kind of lift the lees into solution, and I like what it did.
Oh, yeah. How do you do that? Do you seal the tank?
No, I pop the top, right? So the top's open. And it depends on what type of tank you have, I suppose. And then I have
Oh, you're not recycling CO2. You're using a CO2 tank. I'm in it.
Canister CO2.
I'm in it. Okay,
sorry. So I have a gas connect to tri-clamp connection, and I just hook it up, and I turn the gas on, and then I crack the valve a bit and burst it in, and just to lift and roll the lees up. And
what do you do that on? Do you do that on the you said you were. Sorry, I got 2 things in my mind right now. Do you do that on the Sauve Blanc?
This year I messed around more with the Pinot Gris.
Pinot Gris?
And
Okay.
I'm really happy with that. I went, normally we use a more innocuous yeast on the Pinot Gris because it's Pinot Gris and it's not supposed to have a ton of character. But I used Vin 13, baby.
I just want to.
I was like, I'm going to turn this into a fruit bomb because I know there's more to this thing.
Yeah.
So.
But what you mean? Explain what you mean by that, because you mean that the character is supposed to come from what I think you meant is the character is supposed to come from the aging in the Pinot Gris,
the
right?
age and lees integration is where you're supposed to build the flavor profile. But
so we make Pinot Grigio, is what we call it, and that's our fruit bomb.
Are you any residual in that, or is it dry?
No, we ferment that to dry. The acid on our Pinot, we fooled around. Again, I hate leaving residual sugar in whites when it's that small.
Like the lot?
Because
when the lot is that small?
No, just when there's that small amount, because we'd never...
Because you're like, I'll just throw this loaded gun on the table.
Exactly, yeah. I don't want to gamble with a great wine by adding, 0.5% to round out the mouthfeel when we're bottling. Man. For our listeners, we're still bottling by hand right now, so our sterility practices are as best they can be, but I don't want to gamble, so that's what I'm talking about.
Right. I mean, you do everything you can. Dude, I apologize.
I'm doing more each time we bottle. Let's just say that.
Heavy-footed neighbor above me.
Say that? Oh, yeah, I know. I wanted to say something, but
you can hear it?
No, I thought you could hear what was happening in my apartment building right now.
There's like my neighbor is like hoofing around their apartment, and there's also a fly buzzing around here too.
No, our entire apartment building decided to do laundry tonight, so.
So where were we talking? We were sterility practices. I mean, you.
No, I wanted to ask you one more question.
Yeah, go.
About oak integration on Sauvignon Blanc, because you were saying, I was explaining to the listener that Pinot Gris, you want to stir the lees and get some of that lees characteristic in there because it is the style for Pinot Gris.
Right.
But the Sauvignon Blanc, you mentioned you're doing that in barrel? Is that what I heard?
Stainless.
You're doing Sauvignon Blanc stainless?
Stainless
okay,
barrel. I'm sorry, I should have specified that. Sorry, everyone. Stainless steel barrel. SSB.
No, I heard that because Larry and I were talking about using an old barrel to try to,
Sauve Blanc
just
is
fool
prone to
around
reduction. So what I've heard is, I've never done a barrel ferment on Sauve Blanc. I have aged
either
it in barrel. but because
Oh, really?
I've
In
heard,
oak.
Yep.
Let's
I've
just be clear.
heard, what's that?
I was just laughing. In oak.
Yes, in oak barrel. I'll try and be more clear about that.
Yeah.
So, here's what I will say. I've heard that it's very difficult to ferment in oak with Sauvignon Blanc because of its tendency to go reduced.
Okay.
So I haven't played around with an oak fermentation.
I've heard of
however,
its tendency
fermented
to
in stainless, and then after fermentation pulled it out to oak, and that worked wonderfully. It did add
wonderfully out.
mouthfeel. It wasn't 100% oak, but it was a portion.
Yeah.
And in the tasting room, my last boss in California was like a world famous statistician, and he liked to play games. So we bottled 2 Sauvignon Blancs, one that had oak aging and one that did not. And then he had everyone taste it and do like a double blind vote. and then he compiled the results, and it was nearly 50-50 to what people prefer. So I thought that was really
Okay, here's a question for you. Do you know what region in France puts most of their Sauvignon Blanc into oak? I know Bordeaux puts some of it sometimes.
No. Do you know the answer to this, or are you just asking me?
No, I'm asking. I think it's Loire, but we're going to talk about that with the lacase enzyme in the next podcast. These are my notes.
Okay. Well, keep taking them, because I'm not taking any notes.
Well, that's great. Well, I feel like our one listener, our subscriber, we're grateful for.
He's going to be like, oh, all right, well, we know who's pulling the weight in this.
Yeah, well, he's going to be grateful the next episode when he gets this whole lesson on the lacase enzyme and the Sauvignon Blanc aged in oak all over the world.
We better deliver.
No, we were talking about either doing a partial ferment in oak or doing something like that on lees aging, something like that. Mm-hmm. I have heard many times from many winemakers that the protein stabilization of Sauvignon Blanc is tough.
Okay.
Have you heard this, that it's hard to get it heat stable?
Yeah. I mean, that's normal.
Yeah.
I've had it
that's
be
about all I know.
5 pounds, and I've had it be 12 pounds of bentonite per 1,000 gallons. So,
him and his pounds per gallons.
Yeah, you're a ppm guy?
These West Coast winemakers haven't even heard of the metric system yet.
That's not true.
I'm kidding. I know. I'm just every winemaker comes from it at a different perspective. So you learn that way.
I do pounds per 1,000, but obviously I have to
100.
convert to grams per 1,000 gallons almost immediately. Otherwise, I have no idea how to weigh it on my scale.
Yeah, I was doing that today. I was putting my oak chips powder into the tank today, and I'm like, so how 2 pounds per ton? How many pounds are in a kilogram? Like, that was my first question.
You know what you need? I use an app on my phone called Power One, and it basically has every conversion on the planet. You just would click on it.
I've got one as well.
Yeah, I love Power One. And then my previous boss, Jacques Mercier, he programmed a whole bunch of things into Power One. I guess it's a more simple, like, you're allowed to make your own templates. So I've got all sorts of stuff in here for dosage, SO2 dosing, and all of that stuff. It's really cool. Hey, what did you just pour?
It's Chamberson.
Oh, really?
Yes. And to plug my old winemaker boss, he has a website called wineads.com.
Oh, yeah, I use that every day.
Yeah, I use that all the time. It's fantastic.
All my bricks adjustments, I use that.
Yeah. I used to have an Excel spreadsheet until I realized that it was just much easier with a smartphone to go to him because
yeah, it is.
There's no good Excel app for my phone right now.
Winemaking on the fly.
Vey.
So what were we talking about? Sauvignon Blanc and heat stability. So there's lots of stuff you can do to try and improve stability up front. One of which is Well, the oak will actually help if you make an oak add up front. If you're
Yeah.
planning to go the oak way. Other tannins help with stability. Gallic tannin helps with stability up front for protein. You can use it in the settling phase, and then you can also use it during the fermentation phase at 150 to 200 ppm ish. Depends on your product. Anyway, that helps with heat stability as well. Enzyme settling helps a little bit with heat stability, but those tannins really do. Supposedly, they help a lot with heat stability with Sauv Blanc.
Oh, good to know.
And then if the ferment gets a little funky, you can always do a slight bentonite add once the tank is fermenting a little bit. And that is supposed to be even more beneficial because it might strip a little nose, but just to say, if things go funky on you, you can use a little bit of bentonite in the tank because it will keep lifting it up into solution, and it increases the contact time way longer than if you were rolling it or pumping it over.
Gotcha. Say that first part of that again. I missed that just on my end.
What?
Actually, it'll be
that adding bentonite during the ferment, but it's not something I would add on day one. You want the tank
I
to
gotcha.
actually
I
be
heard it now.
fermenting a little bit, and then what I do is I mix it up. I put it in a squeeze bottle, and as I roll the tank, I just squirt a little bit at a time to make sure that it's really well dispersed.
Yeah, that's one thing I've actually been doing. I think has been really helping my winemaking is all of the concentrates I've been diluting a little bit, and then really trying to disperse like the enzymes and those things around the tank a little better than I normally do.
Yeah, when I talked to an artist when I was doing
exactly
a reduction treatment, they told me that I should be diluting things way down and rolling the tank and dispersing it over a huge volume, and that way it's way more effective that way. So
well, I've been like mixing my enzymes with other things that I'm adding. Well, not I'm diluting my enzymes a little bit with water and really trying to get them across every inch of the tank, either by pumping them through or just really trying to disperse things and not just pouring things on top, because I think that's just a bad way to wine make.
Yeah, well, I talked to a rep, a sales rep for a company, and he told me that I should wait 24 hours between tannin and enzyme adds. Like that there should be a 24-hour window. You add your enzymes, and then 24 hours later you add your tannin, or vice versa. You add your tannin, and then 24 hours later you add your enzymes. And that made my life a lot more challenging. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But
well, that's what I
tried
find
to do
more...
it that way if I could, to really mitigate any confliction between the two. You're spending a lot on these compounds to add to make the wines better, and if you wind up canceling them out, then I don't know what the heck you're doing. So
yeah,
a lot of that, like I saw that a lot when I was consulting. People would be like, "Oh yeah, we just threw these enzymes in here, and now we're settling with bentonite," and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
You spend all that money on the enzymes, and then immediately you denature them by throwing in your bentonite to settle your juice out. So it's just one of those things that you just have to think about. Like bentonite deactivates enzymes. So if you're going to add your enzymes, you need to give them time. You need to talk to your manufacturer, your rep, and say, listen, how long does it take for this enzyme to activate and do its job? And is that temperature dependent? Like if you're cold settling, does it increase the time? Because a lot of their tests are done at ambient temperature. And so, it takes 24 hours for this enzyme to work. I was like, does it take 24 hours at 36 degrees? Oh, whoa, I don't know. Like it hasn't been tested like that. So you need to know what the reaction time is on these things before you go and try and, if you're using bentonite up front, or even some kind of fining agent up front to settle your juice out that has bentonite in it. you need to find out what it is and how long it takes for those enzymes to work before you go and throw that bentonite product in there.
I actually don't use a lot of bentonite on my juices.
Yeah,
What
neither do I.
varieties are you?
I use a product that is a multi-fining agent, polymust press, and bentonite is one of the fining agents in it. So.
And you obviously use that before you add the enzymes?
Depends on what I'm doing. So
Okay.
sometimes I use it right up front, and sometimes I use it afterwards. Like Lafazyme CL is one of my settling enzymes that I use, and
that's what we use normally.
So
we ran out halfway through season
pretty quickly. It's like
it's a great enzyme.
Hours.
We do like a 24, 48 hour cold settle, and then we go to fruit.
Right.
But we unfortunately ran out of that, or it didn't come in this year. Something happened.
You should have called. I have an S ton of it.
Yeah.
No, honestly, you should have been like, dude.
Yeah, I actually think what happened is they sent us the wrong enzyme in its place, and we just didn't get it in time.
What did they send you? Do you
remember? It was some. I'd have to look.
I can go through their list of enzymes if you want. Lafazyme extract.
No, it's something to do with mallow. I can't remember.
Mallow?
Yeah, or it had an M in it. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. I'll look tomorrow. I can. I'm gonna write that on our list for next episode. The wrong enzyme they sent us.
Yeah, I like CL. I will say it's difficult to administer than like PEC 5L. PEC 5L, which is a Scott Lab product, is in the liquid form, and it's just easier. You don't have to mix it up on your Magster and then shoot it in there.
Well, the one thing I noticed with using CL is that it compacts the leaves.
Oh yeah, it does
quite a bit.
Wonderful job with leaves compaction.
So you wind up getting a lot more juice.
Yep, agreed.
And racking is just a joy.
Yep. Hey, do you have racking arms on your tanks?
Everyone.
Oh God, what? Oh, that's on my Christmas list, man. Hey, did you know?
Yeah,
we've
seriously.
talked about this, right?
They
make racking arms that go through ball valves that seal up, so you don't need a racking arm on every tank. You can just insert it into a tank.
What's that? No, this wouldn't work.
I'm telling you, they have these things. I talked to a manufacturer about it. Yeah. And basically, on your racking valve on all your tanks, you secure a ball valve instead of a butterfly valve, and then you're able to slide a racking arm through the tank by sealing it up somehow. There's like a connection.
I think I know what you're
slide
talking about.
in, and then you can use a racking arm without actually having the racking arm in the tank. And it saves you from having to buy, we've got 20 tanks. That's 20 racking arms.
Yeah, but ball valves are like 10 times the price of
right.
Butterflies.
But we already have them. I think they came with our tanks.
Yeah.
So, they're...
our new tanks, our Albrigis, I think is how you say it. They have these racking... we have conical bottoms, Albrigis, for most of our white wine fermentations.
Okay.
And the racking wand is a little shorter than our... Well, I guess it's the same on... It's shorter than the red wine tanks that we have. But it is fantastic.
Cool, man. You hook the sight glass up in your flashlight and you get the job done.
We have no sight glasses, so...
What? So you just have nice, clean, beautiful hoses?
No. I open up the racking door and I look.
Oh, interesting. I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
A sight glass, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny from when you go from winery to winery, because the way we used to do everything is we would do a T-valve and a sight glass. At the last winery I worked at.
What? A T what? Like a T connection?
Yeah, so you'd have a T valve, or it was a T,
Right. Where's the sight
stainless,
glass on the
and
T?
it was before the sight glass would go before the T, and
Okay.
then you'd have a valve to the tank, and then a valve out the T, and
What's the
then
valve out the
right
T
when
for? Go ahead. Keep talking. Tell your
so
story.
right when the sight glass got cloudy and was lees, you would open up the valve on the T and close the valve on the tank, and then the rest of the lees would spray onto the floor, and then it would be being pushed through with water.
Interesting. I like it. I
Yeah, it
like
was
it.
a great. It was actually a really efficient way to do everything because you'd see wine, and then
Please close
you
your
know,
valve open. You don't blow your pump up.
well, you'd call on the walkie-talkie and you'd say slow down
Walkie-talkie.
because we
Where the hell were
we
you
were going.
working? Space camp?
Yeah, exactly. We were going from building to building. You call on the walkie-talkie, say slow down. They slow down a little bit, and then, or actually, they would slow down because they were. You didn't even have to call to say slow down. It would slow down automatically because they had
Because
gotten
they're
to the
like,
bottom
I'm
of their
getting
tank.
close. I'm slowing it down.
And then they'd switch to water on their end, and then you would look at the sight valve, and the second it turned a little pink, you'd close it, and then 2 seconds later it'd be water.
Oh my god. I like it.
Yeah, it was a great system. And then you'd run hot water through it, and the hoses would go back to sanitize.
How hot's that water?
It was just warm water. I mean, you couldn't put your hand in it because it was probably 140, 130.
Okay. Interesting. That's cool, man. I like it. I'm always up
Yeah, it was
for
a good
new
way
ways.
to do it.
New, better ways. Like, that was how that was one of the things
Well,
I loved about this. But the first winery I worked at, I developed protocols. And then the second place I worked at, I developed protocols. And then the third place I worked at, I developed new things. And it's just constantly refining processes until you get something that works even better. And then, you think you got it down. And then somebody's like, oh, I do this. And you're like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll try that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's so funny when you have. So, this is the first time since I started here that I've had another, like an assistant.
Nice.
And it's been great. Oh my God. Like, turn the pump on, turn the pump off.
Ugh.
Like, just having that in the winery when you need it, like, and you can both be doing other stuff, and you can be like, hey, can you flip that pump towards me? And then it's just like.
Yeah, man.
The
I have catwalks in my place, so I'm up like 25 feet. It's so nice to have someone be able to yell down to someone, tell them to turn the pump off.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like,
It's
my
such
remote
relief.
would probably reach up there, but sometimes it's not super convenient to bring the remote all the way up to the top.
The kid I'm working with now, he's ex-Navy / Marines. I don't know how they do it. He's a medic in the Navy, but he worked with the Marines.
Cool.
And I love working with the regimented people because he's
Yeah, and if you get busted up, he can patch you up too.
exactly. One of our vineyard workers came in today, and he got stung in the face with a wasp.
Oh God. Yeah, we had several of those this year.
He was telling him all the things he should do. All right, rub some of that on it. Don't take too much of that Benadryl to make you drowsy, and it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
But he's always doing stuff like that. It was great.
Well, man, sounds like you got a good one. That's great.
Yeah, and and the other part is he likes winemaking too, which is fun.
Yeah, that's clutch.
That's a key.
That's clutch.
Uh,
All right, man. I'm getting tired. It's 10
Yeah, me
o'clock.
too.
I gotta press tomorrow.
Yep, I am. I'm receiving and inoculating and racking and barreling.
Wow.
All between today and Friday.
It's a big day.
So yeah, I've
between
got
today and Friday.
I have so
Okay.
much to do.
Well, I'm trying to trying to get most things wrapped up. Like mom and dad and our aunts and uncles are coming down.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, we're related.
Yeah, this is we're brothers.
Yeah, the brothers in the podcast is
It's not just we're
key
not
there.
just bros, man. We're brothers.
No, I
So
wanted to come down for that ship week. That sounded fun.
yeah, it's cool.
What is it called?
I don't know. Tall ships down rigging weekend. Down rigging weekend. So yeah, they're all coming down. So I want to be able to be a good host. So I'm trying to get everything wrapped up that I can, and assigning tasks over the weekend. So
Yeah, we'd be coming down, but I have to work this weekend, so.
I understand it's that time of year. How many more lots do you have to come in?
We are getting a lot more in.
Oh, okay. So I've just got Cab Franc from New Jersey coming in. 4 tons, and then we're done.
We finished up our whole cluster this week. The rest is juice.
Okay. Hey, I've got wines that have already gone through Mallow.
Oh, I know. It's on my 8-week to-do list. I need to check our shard tomorrow to make sure it's done with mallow, and then I'm gonna
I
sulfate
haven't
it.
inoculated the shard. It's in the cold room. They're all just finishing up, but I have a new plan this year. Instead of throwing them in barrel and inoculating separately, I'm gonna put them in tank and heat the tank and get it through,
Okay.
because we keep our winery at 57 and optimal mallow temp is 72. So it's just last year I was biting my fingernails until March, and I just can't do that.
Yeah, I told you our shard issue last year. We had a VA on a couple barrels that
Yeah, I mean,
I'm doing my best
I
to
can't play the
avoid
risk
this
game
year.
anymore. If I can get it through, we're going with it. And last year I used some more gentle malolactic bacteria from the same manufacturer I normally use, but ones that weren't quite as robust and had oh, this one does more diacetyl and this one's better for mouthfeel, that kind of thing, instead of my go-to. And this year I was like, nope, we're going with the go-to.
Yeah.
I know it works and I need to get it through. So
Well, our problem was 10%, maybe less, but it was so random. And I think the only issue was it was just I'm racking my brain why this happened to these barrels, and it's well,
time and headspace.
Exactly, time and headspace, and I'm we wait till a certain, I'm monitoring it like crazy, watching it, and as far as I can see, it's done, but I need to get the lab check, so I'm doing the AccuVin for those of us out there. So I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to AccuVin it, and then I'm going to send them out, and then I'm going to sulfate everything and top up.
Yeah, I just do chromatography. I know it's not incredibly accurate. I've used the AccuVin before, and I love it.
We don't have chromatography, but I'm going to use the AccuVin, then we're going to send a few samples out to a lab and make sure it's done.
Yeah, just compare it to your AccuVin number, and then if you're super confident with it, then I would just go with the AccuVin. I don't know how close your lab is. And California was nice, man. It was overnight to anywhere, pretty much.
Yeah.
But here, I don't know even who to send it to. I guess the University of Virginia has something. And
yeah, that would be the best. There was a lab near us that we were sending it to. So what was that?
Vermont, I think, has a lab too.
Yeah, there was a lab near us we were sending it to, and it's closing now, and
the second guy I worked for,
smaller labs, I have trouble trusting because I've sent the same sample to them and gotten different numbers back. So I'm
yeah, that's what my second boss did. He basically sent wine out. He sent 3 of the same sample to all of the labs available to him, And the ones that came back with the most consistent results, those are the ones he went with. So,
Yeah, that's what I should have done, but
well, it costs money, but
yeah, it does. That's for sure.
especially if you're running like a full panel or something. But if you're just sending it out for pH and TA, I mean, these are things you could check in your own lab. But if you're just trying to check to see how consistent they are and how accurate they are, then you could just send it out for that and see.
That honestly, the way to do it would be to make a wine
Exactly.
with the numbers. Yeah, like a titrated wine that you know exactly 6.5 TA. You know,
Yeah, I mean, you
whatever.
could do it that way,
Yeah,
or you could just send them, you pull 3 samples in a row and label them all different, A, B, and C, but they're all the same sample, and then you send it to them, and they check them all,
yeah,
and if they all come back with the same results, then you can trust their consistency.
yeah. That would be the best way to do
That's
it. My
a
way
way.
was a little.
Yeah. There's lots of ways to skin a cat, as they say. All right.
All right, man.
Yeast at 25 grams per hectoliter. I'll talk to you later.
You betcha. I'll talk to you in a bit.
See ya. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.